Hello dear readers and subscribers. A common frustration and question and also a challenge for artists is whether or not explaining the art is more important than making it. Is it about the so-called art speak, or is it about the artwork itself? Can art still speak for itself, or do you have to intellectualize it to be taken serious by the art world? So is art still about the art, or is it about the words and the context surrounding the artwork? Well, no matter how much you think about a particular artwork, no matter how much you intellectualize an artwork, if it does not meet a certain material, technical, or original quality, the artwork will not succeed. Some might be surprised with this statement, considering the misconception that with art speak one can make any artwork good or important. However, for instance, an unoriginal painting that is poorly executed and that uses materials of inferior quality can never become a good painting, regardless how much you intellectualize it, how much and how hard you think about it, or whoever your press agent might be. However, if it does meet those standards, then it can have impact, and can be a direct impact in which the art can stand its ground and speak for itself. However, that should not mean that meaning, that content, cannot be connected to form. I think that form and content should never be mutually exclusive. One could argue that the great masterpieces combine both, that a synergy emerges between those two. One can appreciate the skill, beauty or material quality of the artwork instantly, and also achieve a deeper understanding by discovering its underlying idea, narrative, message or iconography, reaching a new level of appreciation for the artwork through text and context. Over the years, and thanks to this channel as well, I have noticed that numerous artists struggle to create this synergy or are not sure how to talk about it, how to explain it, if they even have to in the first place. So as a result, earlier this week, I spoke with Ajay Kurian. Ajay is an artist, writer and educator, as well as the founder of Crits, an educational platform offering virtual studio mentorship and MFA level feedback to artists. His work has been exhibited internationally at institutions including the Whitney Biennial, MoMA PS1 and the Fridericanium in Kassel, and has taught at Yale, Columbia, Parsons and the Maryland Institute College of Art. As a result, I can't imagine a better person to unpack this relationship between form and content as an artist. Hi Ajay, I'm delighted to have you on the channel. I will be asking a few questions this time from my studio instead of my typical setting on the couch with my dog next to me. So it's with a paint splattered shirt, but that's why artists wear black, I guess. And in a room smelling of turpentine, but perhaps considering the virtual studio visits you do with Crits, perhaps there is no better place for this conversation. So the first thing that I really wanted to ask you is that over the years I've heard so many artists that they genuinely feel stuck when it comes to explaining, writing or talking about their work. Some therefore lean into some rather overly complex or very contrived theories or ideas, whereas others ignore the conversation entirely. What is the best place to start here?
Hey Julian, it's great to talk to you. First off, I just want to say that everybody at Crits really admires what you've done at CAI, so just hats off for that, and it's always nice to be in conversation with you. So when it comes to artists talking or writing about their work, that's obviously something that is very important to me. I write a lot of my own press releases for my own work. I publish my writing, and of course I run Crits, and so we're constantly mentoring artists and dealing with these very problems. I think what's most important as a starting place is if you find yourself at one or the other pole that you're describing, try to start from a blank slate. So instead of trying to think, oh gosh, what kind of theory can I impose on here, or how can I fluff this up, or whatever that might be, instead go back to the very beginning and just look at your work as if you've never seen it before. And it can be a very, very helpful exercise in just noticing the things that you see and not having any ideas about it just yet. So if you start noticing that, for instance, you use heavy impasto when you're painting, just note that down. If there's, in this particular body of work, there's a lot of orange, note that down. None of these things have to mean anything yet. If you have a predilection for using chicken wire in your sculptures, note it down. When you start noticing those things, and then you start noticing a next step of like, okay, so the chicken wire is structural and it gets hidden. Then that's the next step. And you start building on these things from the very, very specifics of what you're seeing. And then you start pulling ideas from that and seeing what is it that you're dealing with. If you're a more research-based artist, then some of this might already be done for you. But for those of you who, maybe are working from a more materially driven place, my first thing that I tell an artist is really just look at how you use those materials and don't have any preconceived ideas about them. Don't try to make histories about them. You can get there, but just start from how you're using those materials first and foremost. And it can start giving you the building blocks to start making a statement that doesn't feel overblown and feels honest to who you are.
Do artists really need a conceptual framework to be taken seriously by the art world?
It depends what kind of artist you are. I don't think there's like a one-size-fits-all answer to what kind of foundations are, best for each artist. That being said, going back, if you are a materially driven artist and you're an artist that thrives in process, then it doesn't really make much sense to have something conceptually driven beforehand when your materials and your process are your concepts. They're kind of one and the same. I don't think you need it to be taken seriously, but what I would say is that we are getting to a place, let's say professionally in this whole, art world, that I think there is an expectation that you have something well packaged. And that's something that I would like to push against a little bit. And I think it's something that I address with artists when I work with them, because, the reason that we got into this, we being artists, is not because we have all the answers and we, want to share all of this amazing information because we have this treasure trove. We're looking for them, we're searching for them, and it's coming from a place of curiosity and sometimes ignorance, and you're supposed to not know what you're doing. And I think, sometimes it feels like you're supposed to know everything about what you're doing, and that seems crazy. It seems impossible. And I think that's something that's really daunting for artists today, that how am I supposed to know everything that I'm doing when I'm in the middle of doing it?
From this perspective, how important is writing, press releases, statements, biographies, etc., in shaping how curators and galleries perceive and receive one's works?
So what I try to work with is like, are there ways to give an artist language where they don't feel so beholden to having everything figured out, but it's language that allows them to kind of open up a space. So almost like instead of describing everything that's happening in the arena, having the language to just point to the arena and be very clear about what you're pointing to.
What would you say to an artist who fears over-explaining their work, that it would strip away the mystery and magic and the direct impact of the work because the boxes are already being filled in?
I think when I was a student, I had that fear. I think when you're in the process of making something, and again, maybe this is for more materially driven artists, there's a magic that happens. There's something that can really be conjured. There's an alchemy that might happen in how things come together, and the fortuitousness that, different materials bring, and somehow you've found yourself with something that's really more than the sum of its parts. That's a really beautiful thing. And when you try to put language around that, it can feel like you're almost hacking away at it. I think that's another point in which it's about the language that you use, and it's about using language that feels like it's caring for that. Not that it's trying to take over it, but if you can find as much specificity in how that feels, in what those things feel like, not to describe it away, but to give you the sensation of what's happening in that artwork, you might get a little bit closer to a language that doesn't demystify, but allows a person into the ways in which you're thinking. If that gets too romantic or too overblown, I think there are still other ways of encountering language that can help an artist give clarity to some of their deepest motivations without necessarily explaining where those motivations go. This is obviously, it gets more and more specific based on who I'm working with, but I think you have to really be careful about how general that language becomes, because if it gets too zoomed out, then you're really talking about anything at all, and the creative process just becomes so generalized that you're not really speaking about yourself or your work, it's just the creative process in general. So in this kind of push and pull between the specific and the general, I think the things that can ground it are always looking back at the work, finding things that you can pull directly from that, finding materials that give you ideas, that it's not the other way around, and that can start lending itself to a much stronger way of thinking about how you write about this.
From this perspective, in what way can new crits play a role for artists to not only strengthen their work, but also the way they communicate it?
Well, we offer studio mentorship. That's one of our primary services. And within studio mentorship, these are the things that come up. These are the things that we handle day in and day out. So these questions and the ways in which they influence and stress artists out, this is what we're here for, really. We've all been around the block. We have everybody that is on the New Crits platform has their own, thriving career, and they're showing around the world. There are people that are showing at the Tate. There are people that are showing at MoMA. It's like we're in the professional art world, and the thing that I really, really, is most important to me is that it's not just that these are kind of quote unquote successful artists. It's much more so that they're amazing educators and that they take that very seriously. So these are people that I would trust with, an MFA student, PhD student, whatever, you name it. But more importantly, I could trust them with like my aunties and uncles. Like they will meet you where you are and they're never going to talk down to you. And the knowledge that they bring is not purely in one category or the other. It's something that is more far-ranging and more holistic. So there is certainly a professional aspect to it, and professional development is part of what we do. But that goes hand in hand with how do you find a way to the deepest part of your work, to the deepest part of yourself.
To conclude, I noticed that New Crits is enrolling 3 classes for this fall. Can you tell us a bit more what they're about and who they are intended for?
Yes, okay, so we have 3 classes that are launching right now. You can apply for them now. One of them is a class that I taught some months back called New Identities for Dangerous Times. If identity is something that you wrestle with, if it's something that you'd like to learn more about the history, if you feel like your work has been reduced because of it, if you feel like identity is becoming such a buzzword that you don't know how to deal with it and you don't know like how to wrap your head around this, these are the kind of contradictions and complications that we're trying to unpack. But this time we have 2 new classes. One is called The Way of Removal, the Art of Subtractive Sculpture, with the artist Steve Shaheen. So Steve is a marble carver who I would say is truly one of like, there's not that many people that can carve at the level that he's carving at. It's really fascinating, and I think what he's really trying to do with this class is sort of weave together so many different strands of how he's come to marble and how he's come to understand this material and what practice of subtractive sculpture can look like. So even if you're not a marble carver, that's not really the be all and end all of this course. It really is about subtractive sculpture and what that means and what it takes to kind of, let's say, to prepare yourself before you pick up the knife. It's a great course. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, so I highly recommend you check that out. And the last class we're offering is a class with the artist Shayla Miller, which is called What of My Mirror? Rethinking the Photographic Self-Portrait. So if, I think a simple way to summarize Shayla's class is, if you are thinking about what self-portraiture can mean in a wider conceptual sense, what kind of room you're making when you make a picture of yourself, this is really the class for you. Shayla is really just an amazing human being. Like, it's a person who you feel their aura as soon as you're around them, and you can see it in their work, and you can see it in their eyes, and you can see it in the way that they address every single student they have. So what Shayla is going to bring to that class, I think, is how to really ground yourself in a photographic practice, and how far you can take and stretch self-portraiture. And yeah, Shayla's the best. All of these classes, you can apply for them now. The deadline is August 26th. We are offering 6 scholarships. So if money is an issue, please make note. There are 2 full scholarships per class. There are payment plans available. We are really trying to make this as affordable as possible, but it's also very important to me, to new crits, that we pay our professors equitably. It's a huge reason why I started New Crits was, one, this kind of feedback, these kinds of classes were only happening in MFA programs at very, very high levels and at very high price points. So even though I know this isn't, it's not like $50 or $100 to take this class, but that being said, for what you're getting and for the experience that you get from this, I guarantee you, it really is worth it. I'm not trying to be salesy about this, but these are great classes, and we are trying to make them as affordable as possible. So I hope you'll take a look. They mean a lot to me, and yeah, I think you're gonna have fun.
Thank you so much, Ajay. This has been wonderful. Thank you for so generously sharing your insights, offering artists another safe space to learn about art and to improve their practice and empower them. So thank you, and we'll be in touch. Once more, I want to express my gratitude to Ajay and New Crits for this very relevant and valuable contribution. Definitely have a look at New Crits. I will link to everything in the description below, including the 3 classes that they are currently enrolling. So thank you, Ajay, and thank you for tuning in today. Feel free to watch our video on becoming an artist later in life next. Support us on Patreon, and please consider subscribing to stay posted for more contemporary art. Bye.